Some of you may recall the infamous Nephilim Cult kidnappings from the beginning of the century, but for those who don't, a brief recap of the official narrative. In 2001, a series of disappearances perplexed investigators throughout the Midwest. The first to gain national attention, a 20-year-old student at Grand Valley State University named Kat Greg Gies, went missing in late August. Her story gripped the American imagination for the usual reasons. Pretty, smart, young, white, and of course the circumstances of her disappearance were maddeningly bizarre. It happened sometime between midnight and 1 in the morning on Saturday the 18th. She'd been drinking with friends in the student townhouses just off campus, by all accounts having a good time, not particularly wasted. She left about an hour before her roommate, who traveled the same route home and saw no trace of her at that time. When said roommate awoke to find Kat absent that morning, panic set in. She began calling all their friends to see if they'd seen her. But the last anyone saw of Kat was at the party the previous night. Retracing her steps, the roommate discovered Kat's party outfit neatly folded and placed in the center of the footbridge that spanned a forest gorge. The initial presumption was that Kat jumped, something a few other students in previous years had done. The bridge's height, over 60 feet, is a lethal drop. Why she might have stripped naked before taking her own life was uncertain, and a question shortly abandoned after search parties failed to uncover a body in the ravine. Then, 2 weeks after her disappearance, a pair of student documentarians shooting a piece on the Greg Gies case uncovered peculiar tree trunk carvings in the ravine under the footbridge. They featured what have been described as hieroglyphs depicting some sort of ritual sacrifice to a giant deity. Local papers picked up the story, which quickly gained national attention. Met with heavy skepticism, the young documentarians were swiftly scorned by authorities for their disrespectful stunt. Until Thomas Peterson. Much like Greg Gies, Peterson disappeared at night without a trace, until his wife discovered his neatly folded clothing placed on a forest path in the woods near their home. The ensuing search effort uncovered identical hieroglyphs to the Greg Gies case. Peterson lived in Big Bear Lake, California, 2,000 miles away from Grand Valley. Then there was Regina Altmaier from Reno, Nevada. Michael Insman from Little Rock, Arkansas. Hector Garcia in Flagstaff, Arizona. Different backgrounds, ages, finances. All vanished in the middle of the night, with their clothes discovered neatly folded on a trail several hours later, nearby trees bearing the curious symbols carved into their wood. Speculation ran rampant, so-called experts crawled out of the woodwork to cash in as talking heads, hawking books about cult conspiracies and underground extremist networks. I haven't been able to identify the individual who introduced the name, but from this farrago of commentary arose the moniker Nephilim Cult. It came from an interpretation of the carvings, a group of cultists in worship of their Nephilim god. By the end of July, a total of 18 disappearances had been attributed to the Nephilim Cult, including my sister, Luna. Just as the others before her, she vanished in the dead of night. Her folded clothes were found on a wooded footpath, and nearby trees bore the Nephilim carvings. Here's what you don't know. Every missing person in the Nephilim Cult kidnappings left behind cryptic journals of one form or another. Luna had a diary, others scrawled notes on napkins, receipts, others floppy disks with text files. Their contents were mostly gibberish, and every decoder the FBI employed failed to make heads or tails of the symbols. However, every one of them, without exception, featured somewhere the phrase, "It is coming, 24 years' time, wash clean the world of filth that follows." Verbatim, word for word exactly that in every document. Nobody knew what that meant, but the families of victims were shaken by the discovery. None of US knew of the documents prior to the investigation. Nor did any of us witness strange behavior exhibited by our loved ones. Luna had just started college, was the first member of our family to do so, and was ecstatic about her life prospects. Neither myself nor our parents had ever seen Luna writing in that diary, which was found stashed beneath her bed 2 days after she went missing. My sister was the last person to vanish. It was July 30, 2001. The investigation ceased abruptly 6 weeks later. The towers fell and the nation found a new bogeyman. The special task force assembled for the Nephilim cult disbanded, the federal agents it comprised reallocated to various anti-terror initiatives. Years passed. The families kept in contact, conducting our own investigation, such as it was. We surveilled the crime scenes to see if Nephilim cultists might return, but only ever encountered teens or other freaks out looking for a spooky thrill. We hired our own PIs and cryptographers, and the desperate among us turned to various New Age grifters for answers. None were supplied. In 2008, the widow of Hector Garcia received a letter promising the return of her beloved in exchange for her faith. Many in our network of bereaved families latched onto this, despite the claims of the skeptical few insisting it was nothing more than a scheme. Nevertheless, we asked old FBI contacts to review the letter, who performed a cursory examination and no further investigation. The letter offered no instructions on how Isabel might demonstrate her faith, or in whom or what she was to invest her faith in, so we all anticipated follow-up communications. None came. Hope dwindled. Some in our network passed away. Others withdrew. Our number shrank to a handful of stalwarts still hunting for answers. In the fall of 2015, the nightmares began. Visitations of the missing haunted our dreams, but never of our own relations. I dreamt of Regina Altmaier, Isabel Garcia dreamt of my sister Luna. They came to us deformed, as if stretched, their grotesquely gangling bodies shambling out from the trees, hoarse voices repeating the cryptic phrase they'd each written down prior to their disappearances, only the countdown amended. It is coming, 10 years' time, wash clean the world of filth that follows. A warning? Directions? It felt simultaneously prophetic and instructional. Night after night, the same dream, and it went on for weeks. None of us knew what it meant, but there were plenty of wild theories. Conspiracies about mind control, radio frequencies that broadcast messages from the Nephilim cult directly into our brains. It's the same tech they tested out in Havana. They hijacked 5G towers to reach us. It's a plea for help. They're angels now, warning us about encroaching end times. I didn't think any of these theories held water, but I had none of my own to offer. Like everything else, however, the nightmares fizzled out. The next development happened in 2020, when 3 bodies showed up. Patricia Reeves, Matt Templeton, and Zosia Dreyfus. Amidst the pandemic, the many bodies sent for burial on Hart Island in New York contained among them the remains of 3 missing Nephilim cult victims. Patricia, Matt, and Zosia were discovered in the freezers, each body preserved perfectly from the date of their disappearance. Despite nearly 2 decades passing, they looked the very same as they had in 2001. None of them had any remaining family, but instructions had been given to relay any discoveries related to them to members of our network, which was how we found out. We otherwise would never have known, given what authorities did next. The resurfaced trio were buried quietly on Hart Island while feds scoured hospitals for clues. None arose, nor any additional bodies. The FBI suppressed the story and asked us not to go to news outlets. It would only complicate our investigation. We foolishly believed them. But after no immediate leads presented themselves, they gave up the hunt. That was 5 years ago. Over the ensuing half-decade, I've seen members of our group splinter away, coalescing around absurd theories, some going so far as to suggest the government is responsible and calling for violent action against politicians. Federal agents. This all started when I was a teen in 2001, fearing for my sister's life, fearing where she might have gone, wishing she would come back. Now, I find myself wondering where she went to, if I might be able to join her. The clock is almost up. 24 years dwindled to nothing. What will happen? Will it come to wash clean the world of the filth that follows?